Welcome back to Beyond the Sign. Today we're joined by Daniel McCarthy, entrepreneur, businessman, founder of the Makeup Eraser, founder and CEO of DeLex Realty, and someone who's been active in public policy here in Arizona. Daniel spent over a decade building companies here in Arizona, leaning heavily into technology, leadership, and long-term vision. We're extremely grateful for the time he was willing to share with us of his insight and journey with our listeners. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Thank you very much for having me, you guys. And I look forward to a good conversation, of course.
Before we dive into what you're building today, take us back. Where did this entrepreneurial journey start?
Well, for me, I was always very intrigued to make money. I had a paper route when I was a young kid. It was something that was just instilled in me that, you know, I came from a long line of people that worked for themselves and, were entrepreneurial. That a lot of people that did a lot of good things in my family. So I was very blessed that way, where I was able to kind of slowly just work my way through. I was always comfortable with hard work. Let's just say I like to work hard. It doesn't matter to me. So working hard was part of life, and so I guess what's normal for me is pretty abnormal for some, because I like to keep a good pace, and I'm kind of boring that way, you know what I mean? So I like to wake up and work. I like to go to bed tired from work, and I that's my hobby, I like doing business. So my I do have a fascination. For whatever reason, I can't stay on one thing. I find myself doing a lot more. I do a lot of different stuff. I find myself trying to challenge myself in different ways that way. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why some people have that entrepreneurial spirit. Some people don't. But it's a blessing and a curse. Let's just say.
Martin, you've known Daniel for a long time. So where did you guys first meet?
We connected, Dan, was it about 16 years ago? 16 or 17 years ago. So people have to understand, back then, if you remember the Goldman Sachs crash and the West Valley of Phoenix, where we just had 7 to 8 months of inventory. And Dan had this amazing outlook of, we have all this inventory. We have people coming here to buy, but there's not enough people and agents to help out the inventory to buy something. So Dan had made an arrangement with Walmart, believe it or not. And he had these kiosks in Walmart where he would just have buyers come in there, kind of like you're buying a watch or a cell phone. And he would help get these people pre-approved and sell them a house or multiple houses. It was fascinating to me. And that's really where I kind of introduced myself to Dan and said, like, bro, you have got to teach me what you're doing. And well, let's get acquainted.
Well, when Martin and I met, so here's the thing. I had this concept when the markets had crashed, like what Martin just described was like a bloodbath. Like it was like the worst market. I mean, the last few years has been interesting, I think, because it's just been a stalemate in the markets. But, prices have maintained. There's still been a way. Back at that point, it was just an absolute bloodbath. And I mean, I didn't know any better. I mean, I just was kind of clueless. So I just had this thought that, like, no, we're gonna maintain the same level of income that I've always had, because I got my license in 2005. So it was like, last couple of years have been fantastic. That's not gonna stop, right? And so every year from 2007, 2008, so we had to increase our sales. Well, in 2007, I had this idea of putting a real estate office inside Walmart supercenter stores. So it was one of those ideas that I was just, going to Walmart, and I was like, man, why don't we have a real estate office inside here? Like, this is where we want to put an office. Look at all the foot traffic, right? And you got to remember too, I'm a young guy at this point, right? So Walmart, to me, I came from upstate New York. I came from a very humble beginnings. When I say entrepreneurial background, I didn't come from any money, So Walmart to me was as good as the mall, So I remember I was proud of it. I was like, man, we're in Walmart, this is great. And, looking back on it now, it's kind of funny because people must have been laughing like, dude, you realize you're in Walmart, right? But, so anyways, Martin was like one of those guys that I really clicked with when I took over the role at West USA, because I think at the time West USA was, they were really in a dire straits, like every other brokerage at that time. Every brokerage was just struggling at that point. I think I was a breath of fresh air for their organization, and it was a good learning experience for me. But definitely kept some fantastic relationships with certain people, Martin being one of them.
Yeah, that was awesome times. It was scary times, but I remember this when I first met Dan. You may not remember this, Dan, but I remember you telling me, because this is when the time you guys have to remember. I opened up a satellite office of West USA Realty, and he helped me out baby steps to do this, and just to keep encouraging me to do it and to grow it. So if it wasn't for Dan, we wouldn't have the Sears Group, or we wouldn't have a satellite branch. So, kudos and thank you, Dan, for pushing me. But I remember Dan telling me back then, you remember you make your money on the buy. And I never really remembered that. So like our audience would say, like, well, how do you make your money on the buy? You don't make money until you sell something. In theory, you get money, but you build a foundation, you make your money on the buy, because it was the absolute worst time. People would tell me, and I'm sure they would tell you the same thing, Dan, why would you want to scale? Why would you want to open up a real estate office when everybody is in default? You have 33% of the market share going short sale, and the other 33% going foreclosure. Why would you want to be in default market? Why would you want to scale back then? So that was that stuck with me. So thanks, brother, for
Well, no,
believing
that
in me
means
and
a lot
pushing
to me,
me.
actually. I mean, because I'll tell you, like I said, I always thought there are certain guys, when you're in a position like that, like I was thrown into with West, right away, what I could see is it was like there's some agents here that are just very talented agents, like that know how to handle a transaction. So a lot of the problem was just reorienting the company for growth, and refocusing it on growth. And I set up a structure there where, they were dead set on this atmosphere that I changed, and I did a lot of immediate changes. And God bless Clay. I mean, obviously he's no longer with us. He passed a few years back, but he really allowed me to kind of run and just kind of grow the company again. I think, like I said, I think he was kind of at a point where he's like, what choice do we have? But it was a lot of fun, man. It was a lot of fun. I remember, I really, that means a lot to me. Cause like I said, it was, you guys, and you guys are doing huge business now. I mean, you look at what your team is doing. I mean, you really were a pioneer when that area was just nothing. I mean, there was nothing out there really. And now that area is a very affluent area. I mean, it's become a very high income earned area. It's quite amazing, actually. But kudos to you for seeing the opportunity out there.
Dan, I want to ask you, it seems like real estate was kind of the entryway, but what was the first business you built?
I actually was in a call center. So I'll back up. So I was the youngest guy. I was 18 years old. I met my wife at the time. That we started a family very young. I was supposed to go to college, and I ended up selling college for University of Phoenix online. And they made an exception for me because I was the youngest person to be employed there. So at the time I should have been going to college, I was selling college at University of Phoenix. And at University of Phoenix online, I don't know, back in this point, this is 25 years ago or so at this point. So this is when online school was becoming like a real thing. And University of Phoenix just dominated that sector. So they invested a ton in personal development, and I benefited from that at 18. 6 months after I was there, I was promoted, and I was promoted again. And then next thing you know, I was 19 years old, and I had this great salary and this great corporate job. And I'm like, well, I got to go buy a house. So I go to buy a property, and I'm like, I look at the commission, and I'm like, I look at the guy that sold me the house, and I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm doing this, and I love real estate. I've always wanted to buy property. So I'm an investor at heart. So, I mean, that's the one thing about, I'll always be in the real estate business. I'll always have my fingers in real estate because I've always loved buying property. My dad, had some really rundown properties when I was growing up, and he's always just instill in my head. He was like, someday, he's like, when you're growing, you got to buy property. You got to buy property. So it was instilled in me to buy property. And so anyways, that was like a call center environment. So you have to imagine for a second. So at 18 years old, I was breaking tons of records at University of Phoenix. I mean, I broke every record that they have on the phone. I was just on the phone all day, just calling and dialing and smiling and dialing and smiling. Buy my first house. I'm like, that's it. Get my license. And I said, I'm doing this. Well, immediately we had success. Like I'm talking, like we started selling properties, and Martin probably remembers some of this at the time, but my numbers were, we were selling a lot of homes. I mean, back in 2005, 2006, I mean, we were crushing it, and everybody was crushing it, but like I was really crushing it. I was making more money than a 20-some-year-old kid should make. And I was like, dude, I can do anything, right? So then the markets crash. I'm sitting in Walmart and I'm listening to the ding, ding, dings every day for hours and hours. So, you know, I, 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 I will say that real estate was the, really in a lot of ways was my second run, because before that I had a really good short, but 18-month time span where a ton was invested in me. I was training at a corporate level. I was training, 500 managers of how to make their teams sell and make their teams grow. And that was the thing. That was a really cool experience for a young guy like me to have, because it really led to a lot of success in real estate, because it translated really well to that environment. And, since then, obviously I've done a lot of different stuff other than real estate, but real estate's always been my passion. That's where my heart is. I love, and like I said, what Martin said too about buying, that's where you make your money, is on the buy. I don't brag about this stuff a lot of times, but I mean, I have bought and I've made millions of dollars on property. Like I've bought and sold properties that we've made a ton of money on. And that was because in that 2010, 2011 timeframe, I was there scooping stuff up, and I was just trying to buy everything I get my hands on. And, it's, real estate's been very good to me. I mean, I'm very blessed that way. So, so entrepreneur, that's the thing too, and you guys obviously have probably a lot of ways to take the conversation, but the one thing I'll tell you, if there's agents listening to this, is they really don't understand like what this opportunity is that we have. We're selling the best asset class in the wealthiest country in the world. You're at the top of the top of the top. So every day, like when I wake up, I'm so grateful for this opportunity, because it's like, man, like people would kill to be in our positions, to be able to sell the very best asset class in the very best country in the world. It's, so I always try to tell agents, like, man, you guys don't realize how good you have it.
What is that for our listeners? Obviously, we talk about this a lot in our business, but being as someone who's bought a lot of real estate and has that portfolio, what makes real estate so secure of an asset and an investment to make?
Well, the first thing is it's tangible. You can touch it. You can use it. So for instance, like let's just say the bottom falls out completely, and everybody still needs a place to live. Everybody at the end of the day is going to have to have shelter. Like, doesn't matter how barbaric things can go. Everybody's going to, first thing they're going to do is say, oh, I got to get a home. And real estate in itself is a token of your personal success. So like, what you find is as you get older, you'll realize that those are trophies. Those real estate's a trophy for your collection. It demonstrates your ability in business. It demonstrates, so like you'll find the most wealthy people. I mean, I'm negotiating a deal right now, to give you an example, on a huge property and it's in a different state. I mean, but the guy that owns it, he sold his company for $8 billion. You know what I mean? Like this guy back in the 90s, right? I mean, so why is this piece of real estate such a beautiful thing, and such a, like, literally this is what he cares about. So it's his trophy, so think about it. Like if you have massive success in the world, the first thing you're going to do is find the best piece of property that you can go buy. So that's in itself speaks volumes on the protection of this asset class, because unlike a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency or a stock or any of those other asset classes, you have a product that you can literally touch and feel and use every single day. It gives you a feeling of pride that you can't get any other way. If I show you my crypto, you're gonna be like, oh, that's cool. If I come and show you my cool property, you're gonna be like, dude, that is awesome. That's an experience.
So, being as though you've actually had this conversation so far, and we've been talking about real estate, and how those are trophies and how precious that is as investment. Tell us about the makeup eraser. That's a multi-million-dollar business you've grown yourself as a startup here in Peoria, I believe. And tell us a little bit about that and where that came about.
So that was a really fun project that I actually started at the same time I started DeLex. So I started two companies when I left my role at West, and when we started Makeup Racer, I will tell you that it was like literally rags. I mean, I hate to use that cliche. It was rags to riches. I mean, it was one of those things where it was like right timing, everything was lined up. But in essence, what it was is that my ex-wife at the time, my current wife at the time, but my ex-wife now, her and her family, there was this towel that they would use religiously to remove their makeup. Okay. And I always joked about it because, you know, when the laundry was being done, I would notice, I was like, man, this towel is always being used. Like every week had to be washed no matter what. Like there was, it was religious. So I was like, okay, what's going on here? Then over the years, so this was going on for years. Okay. And then this towel would get cut down into smaller and smaller pieces. And then finally I'm like, that's a business right there. I'm like, I don't understand. Why is this such an important thing? So I started to do a ton of research. And what I found is that the physics of this particular polyester, it was thinner than the hair on your head. So what it is that this would take permanent marker off the wall. It was just a product that is in regular use that's out there that I seeked a patent and I got the patent to use it for this application, which was removing your makeup. And I went through the process. I was like, I found a manufacturer that made this very precise version of this product in China. That's the only place, by the way, that you could get the product, which that's a side note for another story. But so I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait a second. So this thing is going to turn into a really big product. Makeup removal is a big deal. That's a huge market. I'm a real estate guy. So what do? I start selling, selling the product with distribution with independent reps. I just started getting the product out there. Next thing you know, we sold 30,000 units, then 100,000 units. Next thing you know, 1 million units sold. Next thing you know, it's in Sephora, it's in Costco, it's everywhere, right? And then all of a sudden, it just went like this, right? I sold that company after I started it, 6 years after I started it, and the exit was a very, very large exit. I mean, I won't disclose, it was a private deal, and I really shouldn't disclose, but let's just say it was in the 8 figures. It was a big deal, and got a big check, and it was a lot of fun. I shouldn't have sold the company, quite frankly, and that's a whole thing. I mean, but my non-compete is up. Maybe I'll start another one, but I don't know. I got other things going on right now. But I mean, so I'll tell you that it was one of those stories, man, where it was so fun to be a part of because, like I said, it was great timing. Like I had the sales background, so I knew how to get a product out there, and we just got into every retailer out there, and just, man, next thing you know, it was a global brand overnight. I mean, literally overnight, and the numbers were staggering. It was wild.
You can. People need to understand that is such a big business. This was like pre-Shark Tank.
Yeah.
Like this is the American dream right there. So that's awesome. I remember you taking me for a tour through your warehouse and your factory. This was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It was neat. It was fascinating.
Dude, it was so crazy because like I said, when you have a business like that spits out that kind of revenue, in theory, it sounds great, but I was literally investing every dollar in profit back in just to keep up with the growth. So talk about a riddle, right? Like imagine you have an inventory business that it takes, from the time I order it from overseas, it takes 3 to 6 months to get in my warehouse, right? So we're growing so fast that I'm literally like, we couldn't even I didn't take any money out of that company for 3 years. Literally for 3 years, that company sat there and we didn't take any capital out. We couldn't literally touch the company. But then, obviously once it got past that scale point and it started to get to that point, I was like, whoa, this thing, it was a lot of fun, man. But when you have a home run like that, and in Makeup Racer was a home run, but really what I had before that with the Walmart project, I believe that was a home run that was going to be a very big business. That was unfortunate what happened to that. And I was coming off of a lot of heartache from that. So I went into, that company with a lot of, let's just say, animosity and anger and fury, and but also a lot of passion because I wanted to hit a home run, So
Lots of drive. Lots of drive.
Yeah. 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 Martin, it's funny. I remember that now. It's funny you say that because I had you come in and I want, you guys don't understand how much I love Martin, because I'm telling you, like, he is, I told him this at the time, like, it's so hard to find the character in people. Like, finding good character is the hardest part of any business. And the guy has just got good character. And it's like, once you have somebody like that and they have that integrity, it's like, you can do anything with somebody with good character, So I hope we do business again in the future, my man. I really do. Anything we can do to do business together.
I appreciate that, bro, and we will. We're young and healthy. I just went to the doctor this morning. That's why I was late for the podcast. So I don't think we're going anywhere. So looking forward to the future, my man.
Same.
Hey, you mentioned on that product that it could only be made in China, and you said that would be a separate note. So I just wanted to touch on that and why that is.
Well,
This product,
I was yeah. So this is how stupid this is how stupid I am. I thought that people actually cared about that, because like at the time I was thinking to myself, like, man, I can't run for office, and I can't have a product that's made in China. We can't be doing that. So in my mind, I'm thinking, I can't be a hypocrite, because I'm advocating for manufacturing in the United States. And I was getting peppered from these political operatives. They were just, constantly like, you manufacture in China. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I was like, I know, I'll stop. I'm trying to fix. That's why I'm running. I'm running to fix the problem. It's like, I don't want to manufacture it there, but it's literally the machinery that you use to manufacture this polyester. You literally can't manufacture it in the United States. It's illegal. It's against every regulation. So it's like, guys, what do you want me to do? So I'll tell you, this is, like I said, how dumb I am. I sold that business because I didn't want to be a hypocrite. And that's the problem that you learn. Like I said, it's when you're growing up in business and you're learning in business, one of the things that you do is you make mistakes, and when you make mistakes, you just have to be able to fail fast, forget about them, move on, and then boom. But I made a lot of, I can't complain. If people saw, people be like, dude, you're okay. Like, yes, I get it. Like, I get the mistake is not, but in theory, that was a huge, huge, costly mistake for a lot of reasons. I left a lot of money on the table, gave up a tremendous amount of money out of the fact that I thought, oh, people actually care, but they don't. People don't care. And people, that's the reality of the world that we live in. And you just, you have to learn that stuff the hard way, unfortunately. Martin, I know you know what I'm talking about. I know that you've done a lot of good work for a lot of people, and they just, but
No, they'll use you up, no doubt. And it comes from experience, right? You do this a couple thousand times. You're at the point a lot of times where I know you're at, just within business, whether you're doing manufacturing or real estate or just the people business. You know who you want to work with. In other words, let me put it the other way. You know who you don't want to work with rather than who you want to work with.
Yeah.
Just because you are in the people business, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Dan, let's rewind just a minute there. I knew I kind of threw you into a spoiler there, but for those of that didn't know you ran for office, tell us where that business journey overlapped with policy work.
Yeah, over the years. So my mother was elected as a councilwoman in Watertown, New York. She was the first woman to be elected as a councilwoman in Watertown, New York. Now, I'm an 8-year-old kid. To me, she was the president of the United States. Okay. Like, that was the biggest deal in the world. So it was kind of like pushed on me from a young age, like, hey, when you're making money and you're doing well, you have to give back. Like, you have to give back to your community. You have to provide any type of guidance and help towards the community to make the world a better place. So that was really instilled on me from the time I was a young man. And so literally as a hobby, because I got to tell you something, like, literally, like, I hated politics. It was a love-hate relationship. It was one of those things where I knew in my mind I should contribute. So from the time I was 18 years old, I would just get involved with, young Republican groups. I'd get involved with my LD. I'd get involved with any candidates that I liked. I'd get behind them. So this all happened from the time I was 18. Well, now I'm in my mid 30s, and all of a sudden I'm looking around, I've made a ton of money, and everybody's kind of looking at me and they're like, well, why aren't you running for office? Like, what are you doing? So that question kept on coming up more and more. And people kept on saying to me like, hey, you should run for office. And this particular office, I would have never ran for office had it not been for this particular office, that I was so upset and bothered by what I saw and how that office was being basically, it was a circus is what it was. It was, I mean, there was a combination, and you got to remember, I know a lot of these people that were involved with the circus. So I'm actively involved with politics as a hobby. And then next thing you know, I'm being recruited in to run. And then before you know it, you know, I'll tell you this is actually kind of an interesting story. I don't really talk to many people about this, but I actually never even announced that I was going to run for office. What had happened is an interview was scheduled with ABC 15. They sent a tweet out in the morning saying Daniel McCarthy is announcing his candidacy on this interview this evening. And I was like, dude, we haven't even done the interview yet. I haven't decided if I was going to run or not. Because I sit in due diligence for, you guys know this in real estate, right? So where's the best place to be in the real estate transaction? Due diligence, right? The longer I can keep it in due diligence, the better. So when I run for office, I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to stay in due diligence for as long as possible. As long as I don't announce that I'm running, perfect. I can sit here. I can talk to people. I don't have to. So I didn't 100% commit to saying I was going to run for United States Senate, but then that happened. And then it was like, well, there was enough demand, and there was enough demand for it. We had thousands and thousands of people reaching out saying, dude, we want you to run, I was like, all right, well, screw it. What, you live once, right? Why not? Let's go. And that was hubris though. That was hubris. That being influential in politics and having some, having a hobby in politics is much different than being a candidate in politics. It's a whole different thing. The way I'll explain it to you, like the best way of explaining, you remember, I'm sure you guys, maybe you didn't, you probably better kids than I did, but did you ever get in a fight when you were a kid? Like you ever get into an actual physical altercation as a kid, right? So how like you're sitting there with your buddies and you're like, oh, we're gonna get in a fight. We're gonna beat up this guy. And then all of a sudden you get pushed in the middle and you look behind you and all your buddies are sitting there like cheering you on and you're sitting in this fight and you're like, dude, wait a second. I got to fight. Like, and no one's there to come in and help you out, and that's the best way I could describe the, the getting into the political arena. It's like, dude, all of a sudden you're in a fight and you're by yourself. It's very lonely and it's very abusive to yourself. Let's just say that. It's very self-abusive. I lost a few years there. So
that's a great observation. That's awesome. I've never heard politics referred to as that, but boy, that certainly makes sense. And I believe everything you say on that. So that's comical. And actually probably there's a lot of truth behind that.
yeah, dude, it hurt a little bit. It hurts you learn stuff about yourself that you never knew. Like all of a sudden, like, and that's the other thing too, the media, man, like it's completely fake. It's all fake. So like all of a sudden, next thing you know, there's these media hit pieces that come out and it's like, dude, I never said that. Like I literally never said that they take what you said and they twist it into something else. And it's like, oh my gosh, but it was a fun experience. I mean, I'm not saying I would never do it again. I always leave the option open because now it's kind of fun because I like to screw with these corrupt monsters. They're literally, it's disgusting. It's like, they're horrible people, man. Like I could talk about, I mean, obviously I could talk for days about this, but like these people are so like, I was explaining this to Landon the other day. I didn't realize this. It's actually a job for a lot of people to be in politics, right? So in my mind, you got to think like, I'm thinking like, oh no, you got to make a ton of money. You got to be self-sustaining and then you can enter into politics. You don't get into politics unless you're in a position in which, I don't have to rely on other people because I'm not going to say, hey, if I take your check, I have to do what you tell me to do. So in my mind, but to the politicians and to the lobbyists and to the whole ecosystem, politicians that's their profession. That's what they do for a living. Just like we have a real estate business. They look at it the same way. They have no scruples at all. They could care less about policy. Republicans and Democrats, they're all the same. They don't care. So it's like, I'm telling you guys stuff probably, but I was the idiot that actually believed it. I was like the guy that was like, oh no, like there's truth here, but there isn't. There isn't. It's not.
Well,
It's not
there
what
was
it's cracked.
definitely, I'm sure some tough experience, especially announcing a run or not announcing, right, a run for the federal office and United States Senate. But I know you've had some success here at the state level, and you also mentioned the other day that that's really where a lot of these things happen. I mean, one thing that was personal to me as my family uses this for my daughter was the ESA, the Empowerment Scholarship account here in Arizona. And for any of our listeners that might not know what that is, I wanted you to maybe explain that to them. I know I use it for my daughter, and it's been super helpful. And I'm really appreciative for your work in that getting that plan through.
Yeah, that's the beauty of not having connections with corrupt people is I can fight for things that I care about. And one of the things that I'm passionate about is education because education is the most important thing. Our youth are the most important thing, right? Our kids. I have 4 kids and I had them in private, charter, everything you can imagine. I did homeschool. And what I'll tell you is I saw such misuse of public funds when it comes to education. A lot of people don't realize this. To Landon's point about the state is where things happen. About 60% of our state budget, give or take, is what funds public education. So think about that. Of 6 out of every $10 that comes in to Arizona, that's what's going to spend on our kids on K through 12 education. Now, that's where it gets even scarier. Is you think to yourself, by the way, that's lines up with property taxes. Like, so imagine if we didn't have funding for public education, we could eliminate property taxes. That's a whole nother thing that I would love to see happen in my lifetime, but that's a different subject. But ESA for All was one of those things where I was working with a group of people and we said, we've got to get this bill done because there was this bill that was drafted. I was a part of this whole process. And it was like, man, we've got to spoon feed this to the governor and we got to make him sign it. It doesn't matter what it takes. And he was so politically beat up from COVID and from the things that had happened. And a lot of that was a lot of the work that my team had done. We focused in on making sure that this bill got signed because we knew it wasn't going to get signed with a Democrat in office. No offense to anybody. They're not going to sign an ESA for All bill. We were the first state to pass this bill or anything like it. And basically what it does is it makes the money follow the student. So let's say you have a child at home and you want to homeschool that child, you can take the funds that are allocated for that child. And now you can take those funds in an ESA account and you can apply them towards the cost of homeschooling, the curriculum, any of the expenses that you have. And it works fantastically because every year that goes by now, there's more and more people participating and being smart about their children's education because let's face it. I mean, guys, think about this. We're in 2026. We're talking about robots running our planet, AI, all this stuff that we're doing. But our children are still being treated like cattle and like prisoners in a lot of ways. And I hated that. Listen, I literally have my children are my best friends. I have one left in the house. All of them are adults. They're my best friends. I work with them. They work with me. We work together. Um, and I don't want them being spoon fed some, crazy, I'm going to be cautious about how I say it, but crazy indoctrination, um, I want them taught things that are real and that are matter. And that time is valuable. I was a bad student, as you can imagine. I was, like I said, I was supposed to go to college and I didn't go to college. I was supposed to, so I'm not I don't think it's smart to take kids and brainwash them with debatable history. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we don't even know the history that the kids are being taught. How much of that's real? I'll tell you, it's very, very little. Right. So I appreciate you recognizing that because it's one of those things that a lot of people don't know that I was involved in or how I was involved with it. And I don't care for them to know it got done. That's what matters. And we got the job done and I'm proud of it. But yeah, we were a lot of people on my team, uh, you know, there's one in particular, I should mention her by name. I won't because it's, she's actually still very involved and stuff, but there's a couple people behind the scenes that really kick butt for the cause, and for the fight. But yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's the thing about politics that people don't realize, the strategy that's involved to get stuff done and how you have to be strategic to get things done and to get a bill through the chambers from the House to the Senate in Arizona and to the governor's desk. that's where the action's actually happening. Everyone's focused on the federal stuff when the real stuff happens on the ground in Arizona. And that's where you have to focus. That's where you have to spend your time. And I hope that I've done at least a little bit of service in that sense in my lifetime, you know?
So let's talk about DeLex, that experience, pushing something meaningful through resistance. How has that shaped how you lead your companies today?
Well, DeLex is a really the most, I would say, tenacious business I've ever been a part of. It's the most resilient business I've ever touched. I've never seen a business that is this resilient. I mean, because you got to understand, I won't get into specifics, but I didn't have control of that company, and that was involved with a very, very high net worth divorce. And this is all public information, but I mean, quite frankly, in order for me to even get my hands on that company, it was used as strategically in a very contentious situation. So my team that was with me in DeLex, they literally stood with me the entire time. Not only did they stand with me as the company was being just abused, they sat there and stuck with me. They protected my reputation. They fought back against rumors that were completely untrue. And I mean, that team of people, I will do anything for them. I mean, so literally they are still there with me today. They started with me when I started the company practically. And, I can't say enough about this particular company, because what we've done is we're challenging. Let me just explain it like this. Okay. Imagine a world in the future with AI systems as advanced as they're going to be, right? As things are taking off, imagine a world where you as a real estate agent, your relationship with the brokerage should be much more akin to like an E-Trade, right? You remember when E-Trade came out basically in the early 2000s, they were started in the 90s, but they became popular when the internet became the internet, because they could turn their vision into a reality. And what their vision was is, how can we compress the compensation structure to the customer so that they're only being paid $20 per trade? And you got to know that that before then, that was ridiculous. Brokers were charging lots of money for their advice, and you had to pay a lot of money for broker fees to go in and make trades. And then E-Trade opened up that whole world where all of a sudden the customer could buy and sell stocks much more easily and much more competitively. And they changed and revolutionized the whole industry. That's what I envision DeLex doing. We're opening right now in 10 different states. We have 5 different states that are going to open right after that. And what I'm doing is using systems behind the scenes so agents in effect can have the most compressed brokerage model possible. And simultaneously, we can revolutionize that industry in a way where when agents sign up with our brokerage, they can come to expect, in an ideal world, literally like zero. I mean, I'm trying to get the fees from the agent to the brokerage to where it's nothing, where it's literally nothing. And not because that's not the purpose of doing it. That's just a metrics to say that we're doing our job properly, and we've systematized in the back so well that the agents don't have to have, the overhead that comes with a typical brokerage. Like typical brokerages, you're paying for huge offices, you're paying for, the expense accounts of the executives, the holiday parties, you're paying for all these things from your broker fees. And it's like, well, why? I mean, you as the agent, quite frankly, you're the one that is doing all the work. The brokerage, outside of complicated situations, and that's where we have to maintain the value proposition, where you can still get the level of service where if you get into a complicated situation, you have the brightest minds behind you unwinding those situations and supporting you and making sure that they're negotiated properly, because real estate's complex, obviously. But DeLex is the perfect mixture of balance, I believe, of, can we charge as low as possible to the agents, provide 10 times service than your highest split shops that are out there, but also give them a brand and substance that they want to be a part of. And that's where the brand comes in. DeLex has a ton of substance behind it, because now the story that's there, I own 100% of the company. That's not going to stay that way forever. I mean, I'll tell you quite frankly, I own 100% of the company, and I imagine a world where that is going to get diluted a few times over the next, especially this next couple of years. That's where I'm focusing right now, as I'm in the in the process of, those steps that are required. And all that's what's beautiful about DeLex is that all of that business background has all got me to this point now where I can comfortably lead this comfortably down this road where we could become a 50,000 agent strong, 100,000 agent strong, because we've demonstrated in Phoenix. If you can demonstrate what we've done in Phoenix, you can do it anywhere, because Phoenix is the most competitive market for brokers in the country. I mean, bottom line, Martin knows that. Everybody knows that. So if you can get up to 1,000 agents here in Phoenix, which we did a couple years ago, it's time for us to get to that next level of growth, and that's what I'm focused on now is making this a very scaled business. And it's a lot of fun, man. I mean, DeLex is, like I said, to me, DeLex is the Tesla of brokerages, is the best way of explaining it. It's kind of like we're way, way ahead of our competition when it comes to the quality of their product. And the other ones are, I don't think they can catch up, quite frankly. We're pretty far ahead, but I'm biased. I will say that I'm pretty biased.
So I want to ask you both, how do you balance growth and culture and keep maintaining that culture you want in your companies?
You can kind of go first on that. Really, and Landon, you probably know this just because you work with me every single day, is really, I'll just put it down into examples: procrastination and complacency. If you have that, you cannot work with us. You don't have the same vision that we have. If your partners around you and the people that you have in the room that you trust to have those really key concept indicators in your everyday, what you're trying to accomplish, serving clients, serving your faith, serving your spouse, your children, whatever. If you have any kind of complacency or any kind of procrastination, it's just not going to work. I don't know if Dan, if you would agree on that or not, but it's just a bad business model in life.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be strong. It's all about your team. It's all about your team. And you got to have a team of people that want to advance at the same pace that you want to advance. And your team you have to have a loyal team. You have to have a team of people that are committed, and you have to have trust with your team. Once you have trust established with your team and everybody knows you got each other's back, you can create magic. You can create magic. And I mean, so to that point, it's like if you have somebody that's dragging their feet, you don't have trust to that person, that as soon as trust is eroded, the person's gone. You said it earlier when we were talking, I don't work with anybody unless I want to work with them at this stage. I refuse. If there's someone, if I don't like the person, I won't spend any time with them at all. So I'm very cautious about that now in my life. So I don't like people that make excuses. I don't like excuses. I hate excuses. If we're not hitting our goals, I like people that hold me accountable. I want to be held accountable. I want you to hold me. I want to hold you accountable. I want us all to hit. I want to drive the best out of everybody that's around me, and I want them to drive the best out of me. And it's all about your team, though, man. Len, I'll tell you this. Like, I'm serious. And what's the one thing I've learned? I mean, you got to put together a group of people that I'll use Christ as an example. What is the first thing Christ did? He put together his 12 apostles. I mean, if you model yourself in that fashion, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to put together a group of people that you can work with and support each other. And, there's a reason for that. He demonstrated what it takes. I mean, obviously Christ is the most glaring example, but you can use anybody in the world. You'll find they just had a badass team. So that's the thing for me. 100%.
Don't forget to ask. People always ask for help, right? And then when you trust the help that you hire, or when you dive in, you have to commit to it. It's no different than when you get advice from an accountant or a CPA or legal or whatever. You have to eventually make that leap, and you have to just trust that information and go with it. It's very similar to like any relationship. You just got to have that trust and just jump in both feet.
That's a really good way you put it, both of you, and laying that out and building your team around you. And Dan, bringing up the apostles, that's the best way I've ever heard that laid out. I never looked at that way. So that's awesome that you just mentioned that. As a business owner, how do you evaluate when you adapt new tech versus ignore it? Because I know you've got a pretty immense tech background.
Well, yeah, this is where we've been ahead of the pack in a lot of ways, I believe, because we haven't invested millions of dollars inside of softwares that are going to be obsolete in the next year. I mean, Like our competition out there, they've sunk in literally so much of agents' money into their software that's literally now antiquated. What we've done is we've taken the approach of, we have a month by month a relationship with any of our software providers. We're always in a position to cancel that relationship and then move on to the best leading provider. I'm not a software company. I want to help. Our mission statement's simple: make agents more money. 4 words: make agents more money. So in order for us to do that, we can't entangle ourselves inside of software fallacies that we're going to be a tech company, because we're not a tech company. What we are is we are a liaison with the best tech that's out there, bringing it to our agents, filtering it. So you'll notice, if you look at the pattern of DeLex, what I've done over the years, anytime there's anything new at all, I'm immediately implementing it into our business and showing agents how they could use it immediately, and the cheapest way of doing it and how you can do it fast, right? Because agents, you're all CEOs. Every real estate agent in the marketplace, they're a CEO of their own business. So I always look at my job as, I'm the CEO of the brokerage, but I'm working with 1,000 CEOs that I've got to help, maximize their income potential. And so technology is one of those things where I don't want to be a tech company, but we want to be ahead on tech. So AI has been where I've had a lot of success, because in 2014, I was asked by IBM to come in as one of their guinea pigs to do I was part of a program that they were doing for their first version of AI. Okay. And I was playing with AI in 2014, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to change the world. This is crazy. And they had these versions that were changing where you could upload Excels, for example, and it would give you all the data you weren't even thinking you needed. It would spit out and say, this is information you want to know. Well, so I started playing with this program, and then I started playing with it over the years. And then I systematically built our brokerage in a way that, as AI is becoming more palatable, we can immediately implement it in our business. So what has happened is behind the scenes is my team was using AI in a manner that was much more proficient, much faster. And then all of a sudden, we now are in a position where my argument is that we can handle 100,000 agents the same way that we're handling 1,000 agents. There's literally nothing that we can't do at this point. So take a Compass as an example, right? They're now the largest enterprise out there. They bought Anywhere brand. So they have 10 or so different brands that are inside their corporate offices out of New Jersey. How are they going to compete with a DeLex that's sitting in Phoenix, Arizona, with a group of just killers that, we're looking at it and saying, well, we can take agents in Florida. We can take agents in Colorado. We can handle agents everywhere in the same fashion that we're handling now, because I've digitized everything, right down to our recruiting, right? Like, so every conversation that my recruiter had over the 13 years that the company's been open has been recorded. So what do you think that data is worth now with AI systems that can literally now emulate her every single day all across the country simultaneously? So again, back to that model, like the E-Trade model, that's where DeLex, I think, has this really cool runway where it's like, it's a ground floor thing. I think we've been waiting for this market to crash to this point, and this is why the timing is everything in business. Timing is everything. So what I'll tell you as an agent, though, speaking strictly to agents about technology and using technology, this is where I would caution agents. Okay. Real estate agents need to understand where the value that they are going to have is going to be over the next few years as this world change is happening. Okay. And the value that they have is the beauty is inside of their relationships. They have to build meaningful relationships with their customers. You are not going to be able to get away with it anymore where you are an agent that just takes leads up from online sources and then you're a turn and burner. You're going to have to be the agent that knows your customers' families, knows you're involved with them, their friends. You're going to have to be the agent that really adopts a philosophy of mass communication with the systems that you have in a very sophisticated way. So there are tools that are in existence that are free right now that I can tell you that if you start using these tools, you can be a mass relationship builder with your entire database for free. And they will look at you like you have that relationship with them, even though you didn't do anything, right? So using technologies to advance relationships is the key, right? That's the key. Don't try to be the agent that's gonna, you can't fake it with technology. You're not gonna be able to impress people with something they can't see, because everybody has access to the same stuff. So I could speak for hours on this topic. I mean, literally, and this is literally where I'm spending most of my time right now, is helping agents adjust in this world and dominating in this area.
That is great advice to agents and people that are and even the individual agent who's spending a ton of money just to try to get their numbers up. Relationship-based businesses. I mean, that's still what it all comes down to. It's still a contact sport.
Oh, I gotta say this too, because I don't want to lose this, because if I don't talk to, if any of your agents that are listening to me, because I mean, obviously I prefer to work with DeLex agents, but I'll work with anybody. I don't care about that. But if you're in the business of being a real estate agent, one of the things that you've got to understand over the next few years is the brokers that survived the online marketplace. Those brokers that still have their private offices right now are some of the wealthiest brokers in the country. They're some of the wealthiest people in the country, right? The reason they are is because they were experts at their craft. So the other thing I would advise you as a real estate agent is, you need to know your inventory. You need to be negotiating deals on your behalf. You have to become a buyer. You have to become a real estate buyer yourself, and a professional real estate buyer. You have to become so good at buying real estate property yourself that the business basically will radiate from that. Your clients will come from that. So I assume, and I would say this, I bet you Martin has a really good real estate portfolio. I bet you that Martin's a really good real estate buyer. I mean, I don't know, but I'm guessing, right? And that reflects inside of his business, right? That's the other piece of advice that I'm trying to give to agents in today's world, is become the best investor possible.
That's awesome. That's great advice. And we appreciate all of the insight you've given us today, especially in leading teams. And you've built companies, you've led teams, navigated intense seasons. For someone building something today, what's one thing they need to get right from the jump?
Well, you got to love what you're doing. And, you hear that kind of stuff all the time from people, like it's cliche, like, oh, you got to know, like, I literally love buying property. Like, I love negotiating really good deals. I like getting a seller to a point to where they just want to scream, and then I want to push them further, and then push them further. And then I want to get a seller to a point to where they're like, dude, this guy, I'm done. Whatever, just sell him the house, get rid of the house. So like you got to love the art of getting a really good deal, and you have to know how to buy really good deals. You have to buy right. You have to know how to buy right. Right now, from a buying perspective, it's buying season. As far as I'm concerned, you couldn't be in a better position to buy property than it is right now. Stock market's at all-time highs, crypto, all those things. Guys, that stuff doesn't last. Eventually, that market's going to pop. And the first thing that people do as soon as those markets pop is they say, crap, I got to get my money in real estate. So you want to be ahead of that. So I know prices have maintained, but there's a reason for that. Wages eventually will increase. So I'm a believer in real estate. I have about 70 to 80% of my overall portfolio of everything inside of real estate at any given time. I think that's the way to go. Everything else is just gambling to me. And the thing I'll say is that if you're in this market, you've got to love the art of finding the best deals for your customers and for yourself. And in addition to that, you have to learn seller carrybacks. We are still in a short window of time. I can't get over this. I talk to agents all the time. They have no idea how to do a seller carry. And I'm thinking to myself, it's like, you guys, you don't understand. You have people that can become a bank. Think about this for a second. Amortized interest, as you know, front loads interest in the first 10 to 15 years of the mortgage, right? So what banks want to do, if I'm a bank, I want to lend my money on real estate, okay? So what that means is if I own a home, and let's just say I only owe $200,000 in the home, it's worth $700,000. You can carry on that thing. And if you carry on that thing, you just became a bank. You're not only collecting interest on that, front-loaded interest on that, you're getting primo opportunity because that person now holds the bag on that mortgage. They hold the bag on everything. So seller carrybacks, if you are a listing agent out there and you don't know how to go after your database and get them to put their house on the market, because there's a short window of time where they can be a bank, and it's right now. I mean, it could last for a lot longer, but as of right now, we can only deal with what we have today. And what we have today is that people are sitting on a lot of equity, and it's like, man, I know I've done a lot of seller carries on properties that I have owned, and it's a beautiful thing, because no liability. You got rid of, you don't, it's not like a tenant, right? Where you have to worry about, they own the property. They own the house. You literally became a bank overnight. So that's what I would say to everybody is, if you really want to do well in this business, you got to love the intricate details of how to make deals happen. And you got to have a passion for the sport of real estate and how to get the best deals. And I just negotiated on a deal, dude. I just negotiated on a deal. It took me 5 years to get this deal. Literally, it took me 5 years. I'd wanted this property forever. I finally got it after 5 years. So think about the conversations I had with the seller over that time. I mean, texting every time I think about the property. I'm doing that, by the way, that same thing. I'm doing that for myself on, I don't even know. I haven't counted it, probably hundreds of properties. I'm just constantly talking to say, hey, you ready yet? This, I can buy it here. So that's the sport, man.
Grinding them down.
Absolutely.
Real quick, a lot of times, Dan, I just want to say that our mission when we started this podcast was really to kind of bring hope to the listeners and to really come across as a heart of a teacher. And my man, you have helped us out tremendously, and you've helped out a lot of people who are going to be listening to this today. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys, man. Great. Kudos to you guys. I hope I can kick it off. We'll get some views on this thing, and I'll crank out some clips and throw it out there. And Martin, you deserve it, man. I'm serious. I can't say enough good things about you, man. I mean, it's very hard to find people with character like that. So kudos to you guys, and keep it up, man. You guys are killing it out there. You guys you have to be one of the most top performing teams out there, by the way, if you're not the top performing team out there.
We're top 1% in Arizona and definitely in the West Valley. I mean, we still maintain that top 1% with our production. We have for many years, just in the state, and then obviously in Maricopa County. But we do a lot in Estrella. But we're like you were just saying with lead gen, we're mostly doing a lot of the West Valley, Surprise, Waddell. We do a ton of senior real estate. We do Sun City Grand. I've got a senior real estate specialist team now that they just kind of, I only see them once a month. They do their own thing. They're doing so well. They really are, because you can't, like, in other words, no disrespect to Landon, but to giving him a 80-year-old lead in Sun City phase 1, that homes are built out in the 60s. They're not going to, we tried that, right, Landon? They're just not going to give him the respect as if a demographic of somebody on our team that's in their 70s and they live there. They live in the fences. So we've been trying to match people up with personality as well.
Well, my father's a real estate agent in Sun City, so he'll love to hear that. He's an agent with me, of course, and I know he'd love to work with you. That's a little side note for you.
Brother, thanks a lot, man. I know we got to hook up for that coffee, and I have you on the top of my mind all the time when I'm driving. I'm like, I gotta give this guy a holler. So hopefully we can hook up in Ohio or Pennsylvania this summer.
Anytime.
All right, brother. Take care,
Daniel,
man.
again, we appreciate your time and depth of this conversation. To everyone listening, if this conversation added value, share it with someone building, leading, or thinking long-term. Real conversations, real people, real value. We'll see you next time on Beyond the Sign.